Juggling Operational Realities and Organizational Requests, Improving High-Quality Programs. The session participants today include panelists and facilitators. Aaron, do you want to kick us off with an introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Susan. I'm Aaron Zureick. I'm the Global Training Programs Manager here at Esri, located in Redlands, California.
Ken, would you like to go next?
Yeah, and I'm Ken Salchow. I'm the Senior Manager of Global Training and Certification at F5 Networks, based in Seattle, and I home office from Minnesota.
Thank you. Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Heuvel. I'm a Senior Psychometrician with Alpine Testing Solutions, and I'm based out of my home office outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And I'm Susan Cooley. I'm a Senior Program Manager with Alpine as well. I live in Oak Harbor, Washington. This session is going to be a facilitated question and answer session, with Jill and I asking the questions and Esri and F5 managers answering with responses about their respective programs. Our goal for today is to discuss considerations for programmatic changes. Programs have to change and evolve, but it pays to be thoughtful when making changes and not just react to emerging trends or emergencies. We identify areas where stakeholders are at odds and how to realign. For example, you have a group demanding to have an exam about a certain topic. There's just not enough SMEs or candidates to support it. And finally, we're going to discuss advantages and disadvantages of changes to established programs. Design changes like adding and removing exams or making exams longer and shorter. Let's start off with a little information about each one of our organizations. Jill?
Here at Alpine Testing Solutions, validity is our North Star. Every step of our exam development and maintenance process helps to establish and build strong validity arguments for our clients' tests. As an employee-owned company, we recognize that our success is truly dependent on your success. We are all invested in your program and in becoming a trusted extension of your team.
Esri is a global software and services company that pioneers problem solving using geographic information systems, or GIS. Our mapping and analytics connect everyone, everywhere through a common visual language that inspires positive change in both industry and society. Our certification program began in 2010 and serves a global community. About 60% of our candidates are from outside the United States. We consist of a small team of 3 people with 1 program manager and 2 coordinators, all of whom handle not only certification, but other global training-related items. At this point in time, our program consists of 8 exams, with 5 core exams, which are longer, and 3 specialty exams, with an additional specialty exam in development. Over the life of our program, we've delivered about 15,000 exams to 7,550 unique candidates. Our program relies currently on internal subject matter experts from across our organization for exam development and item writing. This is a current overview of our certification program. Our program is divided into 3 domains: desktop, enterprise, and specialty domain. Within the desktop domain, we have exams that cover entry, associate, and professional levels, while our enterprise exams focus on the back-end database and enterprise support for our products. All of those exams are currently at the professional level. Our latest domain, our specialty domain, focuses on specific areas of our software or specific functionality to better support our stakeholders.
The F5 Networks program, or the F5 Certified Professionals program, is the current program has been started since 2012, I believe. We do a few things differently in our program. We've blended a lot of things with certification and professional licensure. So we do implement a closed program where people have to register with us before they can participate in the exams. We currently have 10 exams, approximately 32,000 plus registered candidates, about 12,000 of which are actively taking exams, and currently have about 4,000 people with certifications. We do also incorporate things like practice exams, section level feedback on both our practice exams and our continuing developed new exams. We also just implemented scaled scores not too long ago. Our total team is 5 people, including me. We are a global program, so we cover everything around the world. This is a layout of our current program. We basically have 3 or 4 levels of certification. We have the purely technical track, which is an administrator, a technical specialist, which focuses on an individual product, and our solution expert, which is combining multiple products together to create solutions. And then we also have a technical sales professional track.
So we're going to start off with some questions. Who are your stakeholder groups and how are their needs aligned or misaligned? Aaron, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Susan. Our stakeholder groups are varied and include our customers, Esri business partners, international distributors, and our employees. Building a program that meets all of their needs all of the time is an ongoing challenge for us. I'd say overall we have really good alignment with our stakeholders in terms of the products that we cover. The structure of the program is really where we saw our misalignment. A few examples of that, the challenges, as I mentioned, come with the level of use of all of our products and their functionality by each of these stakeholders. Employees outside of our services teams tend to focus on a particular area of our software. Thus, these broad core exams didn't apply to quite a few of our technical employees as well as our developer community. Another challenge we saw in terms of alignment was the differentiation between our associate and professional level. Those didn't make sense to several of our stakeholders, and we needed to do some work there to ensure that it met their needs. And then I'd say one of the bigger areas of alignment that came out of our redesign was moving to a more consistent release and update schedule. And this is one based on time, not on the consistently changing versions and timing of our product releases.
Ken?
Yeah, so we have somewhat similar structure as stakeholders as well as some of the same challenges. So our stakeholders are also employees, our partners, both sales and service partners, our customers, and then independent folks who tried to get certification to start their own businesses. Where we're aligned with all those stakeholders is really the need for a strong, reliable, and valid assessment, something that they can trust, that people know what they're talking about when they have our certification. But similarly to Aaron, we have some misalignments. We still do, because our program was very focused on middle of the road to address as many stakeholders as possible, which consequently means it does not meet the needs of all the stakeholders 100%. So it's kind of the Pareto 80-20 kind of thing, where the certifications get you 80% of the way, and then each one of our stakeholder groups have another 20% that they would like us to be able to cover that we don't.
So the next question would be, how can the vision for all stakeholders be met without significant compromise? Ken, would you mind kicking us off?
Sure. Back to my last point about those misalignments, it's really about managing expectations. So what we often find is that our stakeholders come to us and they want us to change something about our program that would specifically benefit them, but it might be at the detriment to other groups. So from my perspective, this usually comes down to having continued conversations. It's about making sure they understand that when they want to utilize certification within their business process, that they understand what the 80% is covered and what 20% isn't covered, and then we help them adjust or find solutions to cover that other 20%. Sometimes this means having to change the way they apply certification, and sometimes it means that the next time we refresh an exam, we may add some additional components that better address some of their needs.
Great, thank you. Aaron, how has Esri handled this?
Well, for us, it's about consistently listening to feedback and really analyzing our candidate behaviors. As Ken was mentioning, A lot of groups come to us, not only customers, but employees, and want additional certifications that cater to that 20%. The way we look at that is looking at this overall feedback and overall behavior. When do the candidates update their certifications? How often and how do they engage with our program? What are any specific trending hurdles or questions we hear from across our various audiences? And really, how do they recognize the value of the certifications that Esri provides? Additionally, for us, it's about consistent messaging on what our certifications cover and why, as well as the value that they bring not only to the individual that holds them, but the organization that they belong to. We give them several opportunities to provide that feedback and share that information, not only with us, but with other candidates out there. We do that through spotlight articles, customer success stories, blogs, so on and so forth. But really, at the end of the day, it's about their behavior and the feedback that they provide.
So for the next question, one of your stakeholder groups, how have your programmatic changes impacted them? Aaron, do you want to share an example first?
I'd say the biggest area that our programmatic changes affected was through this edition of our specialty exams. With these exams, we're better able to cater to and validate the specific technical capabilities of our business partners, and align better with our business partner specialty program. For example, the idea of our latest specialty exam that we're in development on now, which is our utility network, enables our partner leadership team to better understand how to direct business to our partners that have a proven technical ability in this specific area. I'd say the other big change for them was the ability to plan better. As I mentioned earlier, we used to tie our updates and versions to our software releases. And when you're covering multiple products with different release schedules, that's hard to plan around, especially for a large workforce. So this idea of moving to a time-based release cycle that had more consistent releases provided the ability for all of our audience members to prepare and plan better for taking the exams when they launch.
Thank you. I'm sure, Ken, that you also have an example of this.
Yeah, again, going back, we haven't had a lot of major programmatic changes because we put in the effort up front to get all the stakeholders in the room and try to design something that did hit at least that 80%. But one of the things I can think of that we've done over the last year or so is we actually changed the prerequisites for one of our solution expert certifications. Prior to the change, candidates were actually required to take all 4 of the technology specialist certifications before they were eligible to even take the exam for the solution expert. And when we went through the review cycle, again, bringing in SMEs, getting in a lot of those stakeholders, they decided that one of those technology specialist certifications was not really necessary. The knowledge was not something that would stop them from being able to do that job. And so there was a major change in that. That has had a lot of downhill consequences. But some of the positive ones are that it made it much easier for some of those folks to get that certification because many of them were having to learn an entirely new skill just to get to that level. The downsides are that it did complicate our recertification process a bit and some communication issues with making sure people were aware of those changes. So you can have positive and negative benefits, and I think that's one of the things you need to think about is not just the positive stuff, but really what are the things that you're going to have to do to manage that.
Yeah, I'd say I share a similar challenge as Ken here as well, and that's this idea of prerequisites. To take any of our specialty exams, we require that a candidate have one of our 5 core exams, either in the desktop or enterprise space. And from a program perspective, that made sense. We went through a review panel as well, and it was made pretty clear during that discussion that requiring a prerequisite was an important change to make. However, what we found is there's specific audiences where that may not apply as well as we thought it would, and that's specifically within our developer community. So we're continuing to work with them to really better understand how and if we really need to adjust the program to take into consideration this different subset of our audiences.
Thank you both, and that leads very well into the next question, which is, what are your potential risks and how do you mitigate them? Ken, can you kick us off?
Sure. So there's always a number of risks that you have with the program, and when it comes to managing your stakeholders, I think we've already talked about a lot that a good portion of that is making sure that you have the communication with them. As Aaron said, and I said before, we often have those groups coming to us that want us to change the way we do things to better meet their needs. And oftentimes, we really just have to have a conversation about, well, how are you using the certification? What does it mean? Similar to what Aaron was just talking about with different stakeholders trying to get certifications and prerequisites, we have similar challenges like that. But the real risks that I think that keep me up at night right now has to do with, again, the same thing that Aaron mentioned that they're dealing with, which is the pace of change. Figuring out how we can adapt. We also have lots of version releases and different products, and we have those same issues. So trying to figure out how best to maintain the validity, make sure that the certification means something so that it can be leveraged, managing the expectations of what that certification actually means when it's used in the real world, and then looking at how, while maintaining that validity, we can better adapt to the changes that are going on around us. And it is a constant battle.
Great, thank you. Aaron, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd say an additional risk here, that the one that really keeps me up at night is really driving that continued interest in the program. Looking at our data, we tended to see sporadic involvement from each of our various stakeholder groups, and really understanding what was causing those dips and peaks in our data, and our candidate behavior. And again, a lot of it had to do with the timing, not only of the release of our products, but of the release of our certifications. We had run into a few times where we saw those dips, where Esri we had already started marketing a new version of our product before our certification exams for the existing version came out. And obviously we needed to adjust that for the redesign because, again, our stakeholder audiences felt that they were immediately out of date and opted to wait until the next version update of our software. So really understanding why our candidate behavior fluctuates and really keeping it on a growing trajectory is a challenge for sure.
All right, thank you for that. You both have touched on this just a little bit, but we're going to try to expand on that. In the ever-changing world of technology, how do you keep exam content, items, and offerings, your credentials, current and relevant? Aaron, would you like to kick us off with this?
Sure. Yeah, this is absolutely an ongoing challenge for our program and for, I would imagine, most programs, if not all of them out there. As mentioned earlier, our exams cover multiple products that are all on unique release cycles and updates. So in a single desktop, our desktop associate exam, which is our most popular exam, covers 3 to 4 different products, all on different release schedules. And that obviously poses some significant challenge in terms of upkeep and perceived value. The way we've attacked this is, number one, through our blueprint, right? Making sure that we're focusing on core functionality that we know will be amended over time, but will not change drastically. And the other way we do that is through the types of questions we write. We can write questions in a way that will not render them out of date or unimportant, right? It can still focus on the conceptual application without specifically referencing or requiring individuals to recall where a particular item is in a certain software release. The other way we manage this is to ensure internally that we always understand the roadmap and where our software is going, so we can align our exam release schedule with the larger, broader product release that includes major updates and functionality. And that's enabled us to keep these current and to minimize the impact of the mini schedules we have to juggle.
And I'd reiterate that exactly the same way. You can tell we both take a lot of guidance from Alpine when it comes to developing our exams, because that's one of the first things we do is try to focus at the higher cognitive level, cognitive complexity level for our exams. So not what knobs to push or where do you find this or where do you find that, but the conceptual layer. More of the how do you apply that technology as opposed to what the technology is. And that's the first thing. We do that consistently on all of our exams as much as possible. Down the road, though, as the world continues to turn to agile development and these quick turnaround cycles, the traditional waterfall methodology of exam development is showing incompatibility. Let's be nice and say that nicely. So we're looking at a number of things. These are not things that we're doing now, but they're things that we are exploring. So one of the things is to actually see if we can break down those monolithic exams and create mini exams or subsets of items. So as Aaron talked about, his certification includes multiple products that are on different release schedules. We would look at doing something like breaking that exam into the 5 different components potentially that make up the traditional monolithic exam, and developing those and refreshing those independently, and then creating connections or groupings or bundles of these mini exams to create certifications going forward. We're also looking at that from another perspective, which is instead of having to have an in-person IDW that takes a week and 8 hours a day, meeting in person, which is something that we're not really doing right now and probably will not be doing to that extent ever again at this point. We're looking at whether instead of having to write 300 questions in a week for a monolithic exam, whether we can start writing 30 questions for a subset, and we can do that virtually and hopefully integrate into our community and start looking at doing asynchronous item development where we invite qualified people from the community to consistently throughout all the time can put items into the item bank or put them into the item bank pipeline so that we have more of a continuous development cycle of these mini exams and a bank of items that are sitting there waiting to go. And those are the types of things that we're looking at to try to make it ourselves a little bit more agile, a little bit more adaptable, and again, something Aaron mentioned, helping to keep those refresh cycles as small as possible to maintain consistency with the current offerings.
Great, thank you. What is an example of something you envisioned versus what you were able to achieve with your program? Ken, can you kick us off?
Sure. So continuing education is my white whale, I have to admit. Our program was designed role-based, so we certify people in roles, and the choice was made to make that mean anything that they needed to know to do that role, which often extends just beyond F5 technology itself, but how F5 integrates with other devices in the network. Probably not dissimilar from the new specialty exams that Aaron talked about that they brought out. So we often test people on stuff that's beyond what our education team actually teaches. And that is something that has been, I've been pursuing for quite a while and have not really found a good way to address it. It's an ongoing process. Also, since I just mentioned talking about mini exams or an asynchronous item developed, that's another thing that I have a vision for, but we're not quite there yet. But on both of those things, I may not have been able to achieve them yet. I still haven't given up on them, which is why I said they were my white whale. I'll continue to pursue these, and I do believe that we will get to a point where maybe it's not exactly what I saw ahead of time, but we will be able to integrate that continuing education better, and we will be able to design our exams in a much more agile manner.
Great, thank you for that. And Aaron, how has this worked with the Esri program?
Well, I had envisioned a fairly significant uptick in our program numbers based on the redesign, especially with the introduction of this specialty domain. We really took the time to work with all of our stakeholders before we went into this redesign, so much so that once we had our initial redesign strategy outlined, we did share that with one of our customer advisory councils, and pretty much each point that they had brought up was accounted for in the way they had expected in our strategy. In reality, it took quite a bit longer for our audience to not only adopt these specialties, but to really embrace the new program as a whole. That took a lot more marketing than I was expecting for us to need to do. We redesigned the program in late 2016, 2017, and we really didn't hit our highest numbers or that increase I was looking at until late in 2019 and early in 2020, where we hit our highest candidate numbers throughout the life of the program. And so something I envisioned was this intrinsic understanding of the new program and the ability for our customers to adapt and jump on board. And it needed a little more coaxing than that. The other one that I would say is something I'm chasing, and I'm sure all of us in the certification world are chasing, is really helping our stakeholders understand the value that certifications bring. Again, not only to the individual that holds them, but to the organization that they belong to. That is a point that is very hard to make for all of our stakeholder groups. And it's a challenge we're continuing to pursue and focus on. And
both those, Aaron, relate kind of to the same thing, right? I think the biggest challenge, I often say that I spent most of my professional career as an engineer achieving certifications, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about certifications until I took this job. Over the last 10 years, I found that I was previously an expert in taking exams, not in making the exams. So that communication, whether it's about the value proposition or helping people understand what a new program that you put out means and why it was designed, I think that's 90% of the job, and at least in my role, which is educating people about what they don't know about certification,
right?
And helping them understand and that gets to the value proposition. And I'd like to say 90+% of the time when we have those conversations and you explain the details or you have that engagement, most of the people come away a stronger proponent of your program than they were when they went into that conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for sharing your information about your programs and how you handled some situations. The people in the audience today wanted to hear about that and be able to maybe ask questions. So we appreciate you sharing that information. Please reach out if you have more questions and we don't get to them today. On the screen, you'll be able to see the names and email addresses of the people on the call today. We will be answering the questions that were typed in during this presentation in a separate Q&A session. So thank you for your time and have a great day.